In the chess game of Middle Eastern geopolitics, diplomatic agreements rarely possess a long shelf life. This reality was laid bare just weeks after the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran signed a highly anticipated 14-point memorandum of understanding. Intended to defuse a looming regional conflagration, the deal barely lasted long enough for the ink to dry. By late last week, the fragile peace shattered. It began on a Thursday when Iranian fast attack craft and coastal batteries opened fire on a civilian cargo vessel transiting the Strait of Hormuz. The provocative strike triggered an immediate kinetic response from the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, which in turn provoked an Iranian counterstrike. By Sunday night, both nations temporarily agreed to halt hostilities, kicking the can down the road to upcoming emergency talks in Qatar. But 2 weeks into this theoretical ceasefire, the framework is fracturing under immense strategic strain. To understand why this happened, we must look at what wasn't in the deal. The United States made unprecedented economic concessions, unlocking over $100 billion in frozen Iranian assets and orchestrating a massive internationally funded $300 billion reconstruction package. In exchange, Washington expected one fundamental outcome: the immediate reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Instead, Iran chose to flex its asymmetric military doctrine. For decades, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, has engineered a strategy designed not to match the U.S. Navy hull for hull, but to exploit geographic vulnerabilities. They have turned the world's most critical maritime choke point into a fortified anti-access/area denial, or A2/AD bubble. To Iran, the U.S. concessions were not a reason to back down, but proof that their maritime leverage was working. When Iranian forces struck the bridge of the commercial vessel Ever Lovely, Washington's patience expired. The Pentagon realized that despite granting massive sanctions relief, American and allied shipping was still facing Iranian fireworks. The U.S. military launched targeted retaliatory strikes along the Iranian coastline, specifically neutralizing 4 major missile and drone storage hubs on Qeshm Island. Qeshm Island acts as Iran's unsinkable aircraft carrier in the mouth of the strait. From its rugged topography, the IRGC deploys low-cost, high-impact weaponry, specifically the Shahed 136 Delta Wing loitering munitions and the Noor anti-ship cruise missiles. These weapon systems require minimal footprint, are highly mobile, and can target multi-million-dollar commercial vessels with devastating efficiency. Tehran's response to the Qeshm Island strikes was swift. They bypassed the American warships directly, instead launching ballistic missiles and drones at regional U.S. forward operating bases in Bahrain. By Saturday, the escalation spiraled further when Iran intercepted and struck a Panamanian-flagged vessel, the Kiku. Another kinetic exchange followed, with U.S. airstrikes hitting Iranian coastal radar sites harder and Iran hitting regional targets with increased ferocity. Let's look at the raw military geography. If you are a nation operating in the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz is your only gateway to the global economy. For petrochemical giants like Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain, their entire economic survival depends on this narrow strip of water, which measures just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. The United Arab Emirates possesses a minor coastline outside the Gulf, but as recent events proved, Iran is entirely capable of striking the lone Emirati export terminal at Fujairah using long-range drones, rendering that geographical advantage highly volatile. This leaves Saudi Arabia as the only Gulf nation with a massive logistical alternative, its western coastline along the Red Sea completely bypassing Hormuz. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, Riyadh foresaw this exact vulnerability and constructed the East-West Petroline, a massive 745-mile pipeline cutting across the Arabian Desert from the oil fields of the east to the port city of Yanbu on the Red Sea. On paper, this sounds like the ultimate solution to checkmate Tehran, but a deep military logistical analysis reveals it is largely a strategic illusion. Before this conflict erupted, approximately 20 million barrels of oil transited through the Strait of Hormuz every single day, representing roughly 1/5 of the global energy supply. The Saudi East-West Petroline, even when pushed to its absolute structural limit, features a maximum capacity of only 7 million barrels per day. Furthermore, the pipeline wasn't sitting empty before the crisis. It was already operating at near partial capacity. By diverting maximum volume westward since the closure of Hormuz, Riyadh has only managed to inject an additional 3 million barrels per day into the global market. That leaves a massive catastrophic deficit of over 15 million barrels per day completely unaccounted for. Furthermore, geography throws another wrench into this backup plan. When oil tankers load at Yanbu and sail north through the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean, they are safe. But for any cargo bound for the massive energy markets of South Asia, China, or Japan, they must sail south straight into another perilous choke point, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait off the coast of Yemen. The Bab el-Mandeb is flanked by territory firmly controlled by the Houthi movement, a heavily armed, highly capable proxy of Iran. The Houthis have historically proven their ability to close this southern gate. Between late 2023 and 2024, using Iranian-supplied anti-ship ballistic missiles and sea-skimming drones, they attempted to strike well over 100 ships, famously hijacking the Galaxy Leader and sinking 4 large commercial vessels. At the peak of their campaign, container transit through the Red Sea plunged by 90%. If Tehran feels its grip on Hormuz is slipping, it takes only one command to the Houthis to slam the door shut at Bab el-Mandeb, completely neutralizing the Saudi alternative. The UAE's Habshan to Fujairah pipeline offers another bypass moving oil directly to the Gulf of Oman. However, its current throughput is less than 2 million barrels per day. Even though Abu Dhabi is fast-tracking expansion projects slated for 2027, the combined bypass capacity of both the Saudi and Emirati pipelines will remain in the low single-digit millions, utterly insufficient to replace the volume of Hormuz. While Tehran has successfully maintained its iron grip on the maritime domain, it recently suffered a massive, unexpected strategic setback on the northern land front. For months, Iran maintained that any comprehensive regional peace deal required a complete Israeli withdrawal from southern Lebanon, a region heavily occupied by the Israel Defense Forces following intense ground operations. Southern Lebanon is the historic heartland of Hezbollah, Iran's most heavily armed and vital paramilitary proxy. However, the Lebanese central government in Beirut, desperate to prevent its country from being used as an Iranian bargaining chip, bypassed Tehran entirely. Engaging in direct back-channel negotiations with Jerusalem, Beirut secured a dramatic breakthrough. A framework agreement was signed in Washington, D.C., establishing a gradual, phased withdrawal of the IDF from southern Lebanon. The mechanics of this deal are highly tactical. The Israeli military will evacuate 2 specific pilot zones, spanning strategically vital sectors north and south of the Litani River. Control of these zones will be handed over not to Hezbollah but to the Lebanese Armed Forces, or LAF. The LAF is tasked with a monumental mission occupying the vacuum and thoroughly clearing out any remaining Hezbollah weapon stashes, underground tunnel networks, and rocket launching sites. To guarantee this, the United States has committed billions of dollars to retrain, re-equip, and logistically support the Lebanese military. Predictably, this deal has sent shockwaves through Iran's network. Hezbollah and its domestic political allies, led by Parliamentary Speaker Nabih Berri, have violently denounced the agreement. Berri publicly stated the deal is impossible to implement, raising fears that Israel is simply using the Lebanese army to clean up areas the IDF struggled to pacify. Hezbollah sources have gone further, openly threatening a domestic civil war, claiming the Beirut government has committed treason. Historically, whenever the Lebanese state attempts to assert sovereignty over Hezbollah's armed wing, the group uses force to maintain its dominance. When we zoom out and evaluate the grand theater of operations, we see a complex web of unstable agreements. The macro-level deal between Washington and Tehran has failed its primary objective. It did not stop the shooting, and it did not reopen the world's most critical maritime artery. The systemic ambiguities within the 14-point memorandum have allowed Iran to enforce a dangerous protection racket in the Strait of Hormuz, using low-cost asymmetric weapons to hold global markets hostage. Meanwhile, the overland pipeline workarounds engineered by the Gulf states remain highly vulnerable, insufficient, and well within the striking radius of Iranian missiles and Houthi proxies. While diplomacy scored a temporary win in the valleys of southern Lebanon, bypassing Iranian influence and placing Hezbollah on the defensive, the risk of internal collapse inside Lebanon remains critical. The upcoming emergency talks in Doha, Qatar, will serve as the next major geopolitical crucible. The United States must decide whether to enforce the maritime transit lanes through overwhelming naval power or continue funding a deal that Iran treats as a green light for regional dominance. One thing is certain: in the narrow waters of the Persian Gulf, the margin for error is zero. As both sides prepare their next tactical moves, the world is left watching the radar screens, waiting to see exactly where the next spark will fly. Thanks for watching. For more deep dive military analyses into global conflicts, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Can the U.S. Navy truly break Iran's grip on Hormuz without triggering a full-scale war? See you next time.